Okay, that's a copy.
Story.
Statement, question.
Comment.
Find out. Trace that.
10 seconds there.
Stand by.
Stand by to roll tape 2.
In 5,
Ready?
4,
Roll tape 3.
2, 1.
All right, that's funny way to start. I thought it'd be funny to start with one of Suzanne's pieces for the television show, PBS TV show. Just to because we got the cameras on us and everything like that. But thank you so much for being here. Suzanne, it's really been great to have you here. It's been wonderful to get deeper into this movie, into the history of women in electronic music, and this film does such a great job of going through this unique lineage, and you have such a prominent role in it. It's been amazing to have you here at UCSB.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. And I understand that there are only 2 women from that film that are still alive.
Oh, well.
And I'm one of them right now.
Can you start by talking about the situation for women when you started in electronic music? I know that you were doing other kinds of music and found yourself in this situation.
I think the film makes a perfect point of how liberating this medium was for women. Because I was, growing up as a traditional composer, Western tradition, getting a graduate degree in music composition, and running into roadblocks all the time, saying, women, I had a conducting class, and my professor at an institution like Santa Barbara, UC Santa, said, "Oh, women have no right on the podium." And then the composition professor, because I liked the short form, maybe I was perfect for commercials later. But he said, "What's wrong with women? Can't they write long pieces?" Oh. And of course, we all know that any piece can be elongated into a big piece. It's like, scale. Yeah. It's like, it's not a big deal to change the length of a piece. But anyway, I stumbled upon awareness of this possibility, and then I pursued it.
And it was the synthesizer, the Buchla synthesizer in particular, that brought you into this.
Yeah, but we didn't use the word synthesizer, so it's really hard to hear that.
I'm sorry.
Because
what was the word that you used?
Buchla had, it was called the analog modular musical instrument.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a mouthful, but Buchla had a lot of rules, like he thought keyboards were the enemy. Yeah. And they were for his machine. And he'd call them an inappropriate interface, which it was. And so whenever I play the Buchla, I have a little switch in me that's been programmed, and I do not play the piano. So I haven't played the piano since about 2016 now.
And that was a big switch for you, because you were playing piano for something like 2 decades.
Yeah.
And that's your first instrument, of course. So you started on a keyboard instrument, and then you moved into this other world of sound. And did that all happen in Berkeley?
I always thought of myself as a composer, but yes, I grew up playing the piano. I loved Chopin, I loved Bach. I loved all the romantic music, Grieg, Rachmaninoff, and my mother came home with a set of LPs from a fire sale. And I would just swoon, and listen to this music. So that was my, nurturing level. And I am a romantic. Or let's say I was a romantic. And I think also that this intersection of electronics came at a time when this new iteration of electronics, when I ceased to be romantic. And it was a new expression for me. The piano music, when I say romantic, I don't just mean, romantic love as we think of it. It's getting your inspiration from, the same place the romantics got it, from nature and from nature. Yeah. So now my inspiration is, I'm very permissive with myself, with the Buchla.
And you've been, bringing that that music around the world, touring, and you're about to head to Europe and bring this instrument. Was it difficult for you to get it around or to move around with this setup?
You mean this time around?
Yeah.
Well, when I started, I was very much under the spell. Buchla was still alive. And he was a, total designer. So he would design the graphics. He did all the engineering. He did the visual aspect. And he designed the road cases. So he would take off the shelf things, and he was a genius. So he was analyzing, why does it work? It's not about heavy. You shouldn't have a heavy case because somebody will drop it. And you don't need a lot of padding. You just need to immobilize it. So I had this very light white case, but it had no wheels because the vibration, So I started touring for the first few years. I had to be met by somebody who would hand carry my Buchla. And it was this beautiful. And then I got, to London, and Heathrow Airport demolished. I had damage. So now I use a big, heavy road case. And it seems to be okay. The only, one time it got lost. I say that, as if it didn't matter, but it was traumatic. So that's the big danger. But my attitude this time, because the first time around, I suffered tremendously when half of my instrument was stolen. And it was it was just too painful. Yeah. And so I said to myself, this time around, I'm not going to go there. If something happens, it's gone. It's gone. I'm not attached this time.
Part of the world of sound that you built up and worked with was, not yet invented at this time. And one of the things that's really exciting about the film is it shows how each composer, each creator had to make something new out of technology that wasn't designed for these kinds of uses. And when you came into these situations, it was still being developed. Did you ever talk to Don Buchla about how things would sound, or did you experiment with? You were even building these things with him.
I worked for him when I finished graduate school. I went to work for him, and I was fired day one, right? Because they found a cold. Was that in the film?
It's in
there's
the Life in Waves.
Yeah. Oh, it's in the Life in Waves. Okay, there's another film. But anyway, Don proselytized me. And I always said it wasn't about the sound. The sound was actually a byproduct. He wasn't trying to make a sound, like a lot of these instruments became identified, with the Moog bass and he didn't think like that. He was thinking of movement and the way you could control sound, not limited by the human interface, say, of the keyboard. And music had actually progressed in this bizarre way where difficulty became what was impressive. Oh, look at that performance. Whoa. And what we knew in electronics was that everything, those barriers were gone, even if you didn't think they were barriers, but those aesthetics were gone because the machine could do it. The machine could go zip, it could play 7 against 5, something humans had trouble doing. It could do all kinds of rhythms. And so the focus was not on the sound, but on the way the sound moved.
So there's this creative world that's, a possibility through this whole system, and I think nowadays we think of it as modular synthesis, or you can put things together in these particular ways. And one of the things that always excited me about a lot of the different composers in this film was the way they were able to process sound and, take a sound and transform it. And a lot of the first experiences that I had with electronic music was on television, as we were discussing earlier. Some of it was your work and I didn't know it, or some of it was another composer's work, but you would just hear the sound coming out in these contexts and then not have a place to put it. And coming from a place of having created it, did you want to bring that sound into new places in the world, or was it?
I thought that where we are now was where we were going to be back then, 45 years ago or however many years ago. I thought everybody would have one of these. It's kind of like the Euro-Rack revolution now is what I thought was going to happen. I thought all theaters would accommodate spatial sound. I thought all of that infrastructure for this new music was going to be there, and it didn't happen. So we missed it the first time around. It just didn't. It was aborted. There was a promise and there was the potential, but then the world just swerved away from it because other things caught the attention. The keyboard of switched on Bach, keyboards, rock and roll playing, and the focus on voltage control and feedback. The Buchla is different because it was designed as a performable instrument. That's a design umbrella that, those things don't happen by accident. Everybody thought, well, why are there so many lights on this thing? Well, the lights were the feedback system, so you could play it. When I played a Moog, they wanted me to do a Moog demonstration of the old machine, the Model 15. And I had forgotten how opaque those instruments are. You don't know when the envelope triggers. You don't know when the sequence is moving. There's nothing. And so Buchla designed a performance instrument, and that's my commitment now, and that's all I'm doing is performing it.
Wonderful. Yeah, and it's great to have that music back in the world. I got a chance to see the quad performance in the library in LA a few years ago, and a little bit later we're going to play some 5.1 sound in here. It's a really good surround system in this place. But I wanted to ask you about this film and how it came about that you entered into it. You'd mentioned that when you learned about the film, you didn't know a lot of the performers in it. And that itself is very telling. So many of the musicians are people that aren't taught in school. They're not taught in histories of electronic music or composition. There's a wonderful book by Tara Rogers called Pink Noises that does interviews, gathering women. But when you look at it this way, in a lineage, you can really see how deeply these women's roles in developing the technology and bringing the sound to the public, have been. And so I wanted to ask you, what was it like for you when you've heard about this film and were asked to participate in it?
Well, I didn't know, from the beginning when Lisa Rovner came to my studio, I didn't know what the scope of the film was, and I didn't like the title. So I wasn't that interested. I mean, I don't know what I thought, but I was dismissive. And she proved me wrong, right? So, I give her great credit just because she's a great filmmaker and she did amazing research. I mean, to uncover the footage that she did. There was one footage, the footage that you see of me from 1974. I myself had never seen that. She got it. I couldn't get it.
That's great. And you're already someone who has a deeper connection to television than most people. And I imagine you must have been trying to get this for some time.
Yeah, years and years.
That's great. So, one of the things that's so unique about your history as a musician is how you worked so closely with commercial development of sound in television and then in commercials. So I wanted to play a couple of those if you could.
And I
talk
just
about
want to
them.
say
Yeah.
that the reason that, there was an opening in advertising because people in advertising wanted something new. The record companies didn't want this. They didn't want electronic music at all. I mean, there were a few exceptions, Buchla got a record deal, but I had got a record deal. It was, I was supposed to score the end of the world. I mean, silly ideas that they thought could be expressed by electronic music. It's like, wait a minute, what about my music? I mean, so anyway.
In some way, the commercial world was it having to put your own music in the back for a while, or was it someplace that you found creative
It was a
fulfillment?
partnership.
Yeah.
So, it was very expensive to produce music back then. The studios were expensive. There were no home recorders. It cost thousands and thousands of dollars for a weekend of recording. Mm-hmm. And so I did commercials to make money. Mm-hmm. And it worked. Yeah.
And apparently, some of these sounds have become so deeply iconic that they're, memorable for many generations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody, who was it? The guy, Andy Votel, who used to write all the liner notes for this stuff. It's the democratization of that sonic world, and it's true, but it was an anonymous art form. It was an art form. I mean, I was working as an artist in commercials. I had total freedom because nobody understood what I was doing. It's perfect. It's like, just the communication was impossible. Yeah. So I could do whatever I wanted. I had total control, and it was completely anonymous. So, I'd be sitting at home visiting my parents, and the TV would come on, and my little sister would scream, "Oh, that's Susie, that's Susie." But nobody knew.
Yeah, that's one of the things that is so amazing about meeting you after all these years is I think I might have been, 9 or 10 when I heard your music for the first time. And I did actually see you on television because you were on 321 Contact, which is a kids show. Mm-hmm. And one of the beautiful things about it was that you were showing, where these sounds came from. And we were seeing them as logos or hearing them attached to, an animation or something like that. Mm-hmm. But we didn't get to see anyone making it until that
awesome
footage. Anyway,
it was all a plot,
secretly twisting our minds. Well, if we're going to go to advertising, twisting our minds, let's play the iconic pop and pour Coke sound, if you have it back there in the booth.
Coca-Cola Pop and Pour.
I love that sound, and it's so deep and multidimensional, and it made me wonder immediately: is it all? Is there any recording in that of effervescence, or is it all synthesized?
That's a good question because I did what I did, and I know what I did, and I certainly the Buchla has no problem with any white noise function. But I don't know, if anything was done after that. Yeah. I mean, I live on white noise. I don't know.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Could we hear the Atari logo?
Atari video games.
Okay. So those of you who are of a certain age are going to remember this, but I think video game sound design is one of the most powerful and extensive areas of sound design now, and people are going to school for it, and many people would love to be in the position of designing. And Atari really was an unknown system at this time. So what was it like for you to sort of look at these machines and think, I'm going to create a sound world in this?
My favorite project of that sort was the pinball game. Xenon. And that was really cool because it was, it was a physical reality that you could see people playing, and that was a big project. Yeah, that was my favorite. So what was it like? It was like inventing something, because for me, the poetry of sound has no limits. It can attach itself to anything. There's a sound implied in everything. And that's a natural thing when you're working in the electronic world. You're in a creative, inventive world, and it's immediate, and you can do things, and you can make emotions, and you can make me the sound of sadness, make me the sound of rain, make me the sound of sunshine, make me the sound of whatever. And so it was natural for me to interpret in all directions sound, to make a sound for whatever. So I forgot what we were talking about.
Well, it was Atari and Xenon.
Oh, Xenon, right. Yeah, so I also always wanted technology to be sensual, because I think there was kind of an attitude about or technology, that it was this man's world, and that it was, and I thought, no, it's sensual, it's soft, it's slow, it's beautiful. And so in the pinball game, I could sample my voice a little bit. It was a new chip. It was the first chip of its kind that had a small piece of sampling. These chips were just coming into being, Texas Instruments had one, and Motorola had one. And I actually had a chip agent for a while, because I wanted to get into those chips. So you could do a little sampling, and then the rest was generative. So you could have a few waveforms, and so the waveforms are half the composition, and then the sounds. And I would lower my voice with the harmonizer and do the grunts and the groans and the oohs and the ahs. When you put a quarter in, the machine would go, ah. It's like,
They had this in the college that I went to, and I remember the sound world of this machine very striking, stood out from the rest. I didn't know it was your voice.
Yeah.
And I know that there were points at which you were using some kind of vocoder, or using your voice, because we were talking earlier about royalties, and how when you're making something to be a singer, you get paid on a different plane.
Yes. Yeah, I had so in the industry, in commercials, there were different unions, and one of the unions was the Screen Actors Guild, which covered any use of voice, singing, voiceover, announcer, whatever, and they got paid every single time, a commercial was aired. Musicians got paid every 13 weeks. It was a completely different, experience. So I started to use my voice as a justification for,
for getting in there.
For getting in there, but my deal was that I was in there anyway. But then so I had this thing called the voice box with a vocoder. I had all the harmonizer, all the tools. That was the thing that was on David Letterman. Letterman. Yeah. And so that was the reasoning behind the voice box. But, I worked with Harold Boda. An amazing.
Developed the Boda vocoder.
The vocoder, yeah. So anyway, it was all.
Talking to you over the last couple of days, you're so deep in the electronic sound technology industry that all of these people. You worked with them, you taught many of them, and spatial sound has now, like you said, become something that you can find in theaters. There's competing versions of it, Atmos and 5.1 and 7.1, and you were using quad, and you still use quadraphonic setup. I was lucky enough to hear some of that when I was, your live performance in quad. And can you talk a little bit about surround sound and spatialized sound and what it was like at the beginning? I know that you had some resistance from engineers to put 4 speakers in a.
Yeah, well, that was the beginning of the end, or the end of the beginning. For me, because when I got to New York, my ambition was to be a Buchla performer in quad. I only played in quad. So quad was from the beginning. Buchla understood that electronic sound could move musically, and that it was the only sound that could move integrated with the rhythm. And it was a natural phenomenon. And not only was it the movement in space, but the distance in space. He had a voltage-controlled reverb, so you could, on a pulse, change the position from close to far away. So you had imaginary spaces that you could control musically. I got into a concert possibility at Lincoln Center. Mm-hmm. And I went into Avery Fisher Hall for the pre-production meeting, and I said, "Anna, I need 2 speakers back there." And they looked at me like, who did I think I was? We're not putting 2 speakers back there. And I said, what I always say is, then I can't play. And so in those days, I lost. They weren't going to do it. And I started a corporation with all these speaker companies on my board because they were going to redesign Avery Fisher Hall. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, let's do it right. Let's get it, so we can deal with electronic music as well. And it didn't work. And all that went to the side. So that was a lost dream. And now I wake up here like Sleeping Beauty 40 years later. Uh-huh. And I say, and I need 2 speakers back there. And they say, okay, we'll get them for you. They don't want to. Now it's okay. But when I started this round of quad performance in 2016, mm-hmm. it wasn't easy, but it was doable. Mm-hmm. And now it's kind of cool. It's like, yeah, quad, So, and all this talk about 50 speakers, 60 speakers, whatever it is, it's not about size. Mm-hmm. It's about, you can translate up easily. So you can take 4 outputs and catapult them into multiples of that. Mm-hmm. It's okay. Anyway, so don't get too dazzled when somebody says they have 64 speakers. Yeah.
What else has changed since you started? One of the things I've noticed a lot is how electronic music has so many more women and female-identified performers, and it seems to have been a space, at least in the last decade or so, more so than many other forms of music, that women have come in and started to develop. I know you've met so many composers and interesting women in the last few years. Is that something that you think, is there an affinity between electronic music and women?
Women were the first ones to really need it and want it. Uh-huh. And they really did generate a lot of just that, but it was unknown. It didn't there was no viral phenomenon. It was all in private. Mm-hmm. But so that doesn't affect the world at large. Uh-huh. But it was what was sourced there. And other than that, I have no opinion about women or not women. Mm-hmm. But whatever.
It's one of the hard things that we have to do. One of the things Tara Rogers, when she did the Pink Noises book, ran into was that people were tired of hearing the first question in every interview being, what is it like to be a woman in electronic?
Yeah, exactly. It's like...
And so she.
What is it like to be a man in electronic music?
I don't know. I'm not in it. I wish I was in it like you're in it.
Any volunteers?
No, yeah. So somebody else can be on the hot seat for that one. But yeah, it's a terrible question. And, and one of the things that, but like you said, there are different people in different positions as far as when they started. Just in the sense of I think there's in the film A Life in Waves, there's another documentary which is specifically about Suzanne's life and work. And I think that you mentioned going in and having the composition teacher telling you, why did you bring this music here? Mm. Why did you do this?
Right. Well, there was no receptivity for this kind of music when it was just, you know, how do you make the distinctions? I mean, the concept of electronic music goes way, way back. You know, with Thaddeus Cahill and, you know, 1900 whatever.
Yeah, Chartonian.
And then, you know, but the technology to actually express it, you know, without using, you know, splicing blades and all of that, didn't happen until Don Buchla made an analog modular electronic music instrument. And then Bob Moog made one too on the East Coast, you know, maybe minutes apart. But that was a big shift. Because before that, you could fantasize and you could think of sound in those ways, in the abstract ways, but the tools were, I won't say primitive, because you don't need, you know, they were maybe limited. And when these instruments came along, it really brought up a potential that had never been there. I forgot what we're talking about.
I think we, you know, what you were saying that at one time you felt like you were joined at the hip with Don Buchla, and in a way it's sort of like he wasn't a performer himself. And,
Yes, he was.
He was?
He really did it all for himself.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. It's like, because, and maybe that was part of the secret, because we never gave him a lot of credibility as a performer. And yet he did. I've been to several of his concerts, and they are charming beyond. They're really events, not music oriented. You know, I mean, do you want to hear about them?
Of course I do. I mean,
But, okay. We had one, you know, where there was a music staff, and popcorn would pop, and the players would play the note that the popcorn, you know, hit. So he'd start the piece by bringing out a popcorn maker, and it had to heat up, you know. He had another one for the marimba lumina, which was, you know, a mallet instrument. And actually, because it looks like a normal mallet instrument, but in this piece, it's slowly, the physical part of it is removed. And the player is still playing the music because it's done with light. It's not done with physical contact. And so that was a piece. Yeah, a woman with a baby carriage walks in and takes parts and puts them in the baby carriage and steals them, you know, a piece at a time. So he had a really offbeat kind of sense of humor. He was not very verbal as a person. He didn't like to talk, but he had, yeah. So maybe that's why the instrument was as musical as it was. He was like a one-man show. He did it for himself, and he resented anybody who bought it. Yeah.
it's a very magical world, and you know, it sounds like you landed in Berkeley at just the right time to sort of evolve into this music.
Yeah, it's almost a deja vu, because I'm on a Berkeley campus again.
Yeah, or UC
you know,
campus, yeah.
And that's where it started. It's on a Berkeley campus, transitioning out of, you know, Western music.
See ya.
Yeah.
And you were talking about, we were talking earlier about Indian music and how that serves as this very important sonic grounding for you.
Yes, because it was an alternative system to Western music, which was very focused on, you know, notation and notes. And then I studied Indian music with the Ali Akbar College of Music, which was in Oakland, nearby. And, you know, you didn't have anything written. And I learned, you know, a deep tradition of organizing sound without paper and pencil. And that was, you know, a deeply powerful effect on me, which I still do, you know, because harmony, you know, I didn't understand why you had to have it. You know, I would sit making a sound on the piano and say, why should this note move? What's going to make it move? This is a nice note. Why should it go anyplace? Trying to find out, what was the motivating force. And of course, in Western music, everybody happily went from the tonic to the dominant to the subdominant. All pop music does that. Mm-hmm. And that's a great structure if that's your structure. But once you get out of that structure, you have to find something else. Mm. And it's not harmony. And Indian music was a plateau. There was a drone that kept this basic pitch, and then everything moved away from it and came back to it. It was a tension system of approaching and moving away from that sound. And then, it would land on it, and wow, then, so, yeah.
It's amazing how you were able, yeah, sorry.
Oh, but I know I'm talking too much.
No.
But, the other thing in composition is that you learn all these, abstract forms of how you're supposed to organize sound.
Yeah.
And they looked for so many ways, 12-tone and Boulez with this little modules and all this. And then you realize in the Buchla, you have a whole world of this available to you that is profound in its simplicity. It's almost like saying, well, all music comes from 12 notes. That's pretty simple, right? But then, you have to do the architecture. The architecture of music is what we're talking about in composition. And the Buchla gives you a lot of the architecture has to do with taking the building blocks and designing them. So maybe you start here, you build it up to here, you mess it up here, and you do all these things. And with the Buchla, you have that same variety of operations, but in a different system. But it's music construction, yeah.
You've developed, this live touring Buchla system, and you said, I think, in the liner notes of one of these, that you were using the same sorts of building blocks that you've been using, but you've been developing them differently. And when we were listening earlier, you said, "Oh, I don't do that the same way anymore. This section than the white percussion." Or
right.
You're always adding wings or changing rooms in the building.
Yeah, but the fundamental building blocks. When I came back to the Buchla, I had forgotten a little bit how I played it, and so I had written a paper for the National Endowment of the Arts, now defunct. I got a grant from the National Endowment of the Arts, and I wrote a 40-page paper about how to play the Buchla. And so when I started again, I read the paper, and it documented 4 16-stage sequences, and I adopted those as my raw material. So my performances are improvisation on 4 sequences. That's the starting point. It doesn't in any way define what you're going to hear, but that's how you do it.
And we're going to listen to one of those, I think, now. It's the improvisation on 4 sequences, and this was performed in Switzerland, in Geneva?
In Geneva, and this is just one section that he picked out because it's kind of a, more driving thing.
Sorry, I of course gravitated to the more dynamic section of it, but also because the spatialization in here, you can really feel the sound moving around, well in the section.
Cool.
So let's play that. We're going to play 3 or 4 minutes of this. And
Okay.
it's from 2018?
Yes,
around
2018, yeah.
Great.
Cool. Thank you.
really wish we could just do that for the rest of the But
you
we
just
have,
need a live performance.
yeah, no, but that's what we'll have to do next time in this room. But we have time for some questions.
Hi, thanks for coming. I'm a longtime admirer of your music. I was curious what you think of AI music, how we should think of it. Is it sort of this generation's electronic music? Is that just the wrong way to think about it? As a composer, do you find it exciting, terrifying? Just sort of, where do you think it's going, in speaking sort of as a composer?
Well, my niece is a big fan of Suno. And I'm just awed, at the quality of production that can come from that. But what you realize is that, and what we've all discovered is that it's trained on something. And what it's trained on is what it knows how to do. And so it does perfect, like conscious commercial music. Some of the advantages are that I noticed is that the lyrics, for instance, are totally understandable. Whatever paradigms they have for clarifying the vocal part, there's no confusion. It's delivered. I don't think we should be afraid of it. It's a tool. All these things are tools. And who uses the tools? We do. So as long as we have a nice new tool, we have to figure out how to use it. Now I can go in and do a birthday song for my niece. She loves to play tennis. And out comes, a 3-minute song about, it's really quite satisfying. And if you get good at it, my niece will spend 40 iterations of making it work so that the shape of it works. She's done songs about the Constitution. You can feed it anything, right? So anyway, I think it's a wonderful new tool. Is it like this? I think it's probably closer to the human than any other tool that we've had, because it's actually digesting our creations. And so it is a partner. And I don't know what's going to become of it. And probably I'll be gone by the time it all figures itself out. I don't know, maybe not. What do you think?
I'm not familiar with it as a music, but as a professor, I find it terrifying.
Is it going to teach?
It's harder to teach.
Yeah.
To get the students to actually do the work.
Oh, God, I know. That's really, yeah. I've been feeding, my contracts into it. My insurance policy. Whatever it is that I can't understand, and I just say, am I covered for, my driveway falling? No, you're not. So it's a wonderful tool. Yeah, but maybe you need like some kind of honor system. They used to have honor systems. They used to work. They do. Okay.
So much of your work, other than obviously the commercial stuff that is representing visuals or a brand, is very evocative of human nature, whether that's feeling or, cars or birds or bubbles or whatever. And I'm wondering if when you're creating a piece of music, do you have that in mind, or does that sort of connection to reality and what we experience, does that come later, or are you trying to create that and emulate that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I hate when people say that, but it is an interesting question because inspiration can come from something. I have a whole series of piano pieces I call them the window pieces. So I'm looking out the window. It doesn't mean that I'm right, it's an inspiration, which means you can use something to trigger a source of freedom within you that then can express. Expression is freedom. So if you're trying to do something in a box, it might not work that well. There's a constraint implied in your question about, is the music constrained into this goal? And no, it's not. I mean, my early pieces, I didn't even have titles for them. Wave 1, wave 2, wave 3. But I think it's okay if people visualize to it or whatever, but that's not what I'm doing. I don't know if that answers the question. Did it? Yeah. I mean, you could. I have a piece that's based on Respighi's, one of Respighi's pieces. I can't even remember the name. And you can feel the nature, the inspiration of nature in it. But I don't know how literal you want to be. There's no need to be literal. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for all your work and thank you for visiting us. I guess my question's about community, because it seems like, certainly in the early stages of your career and explorations with Buchla, it was very isolated. Whereas in the decades since then, other emergent or niche or underground or DIY spheres of music creation have really benefited from communities of practice. So they've maybe shared cassette tapes, or they've now connected through the internet. And yeah, it sounds like maybe your experience was much more isolated. So really my question is, how aware were you in those early days of people elsewhere in the US or elsewhere in the world engaged in these early experiments of electronic music?
Well, our meeting ground, thank you for your question. Our meeting ground at first was the Audio Engineering Society meetings. So you would go to those meetings and you'd, meet everybody. And that was really a very important meeting place. Experiments in art and technology on the West Coast, where we tried to organize engineers and artists together. And I ran that for a while. So that was a community, or the attempt at a community. I think the isolation part is just how you like to work. I was never a good collaborator. I'm just starting to collaborate now. I do a lot of collaboration now. And it's good.
Oh, it's wonderful. There's the great record that you did with Caitlin O'Reilly-Smith, and there's a record out that just very recently.
Jonathan Fatoussi.
Jonathan Fatoussi, and now you're working in England with Actress.
Yeah. Actress and I are doing a concert this month at the Barbican, and we have no idea what we're doing. Because, once you get out of the box, you can create your own box, and I certainly have a live performance box that I inhabit, that I feel comfortable in. I start with the ocean, and whatever, it goes from there. But there's a lot of improvisation in this, in a structured way, like any improvisation. Improvisation has some structure, or it should. So we don't have any structure for our improvisation. And this is very risky for me, because as soon as we try to structure it, we're not doing what we're meant to do. Because what we're meant to do is what we do, which is we don't talk, we don't have a concept, a pre-concept, and we feed off of each other's sound creation in the moment. And I love in the moment because it's alive, right? This is what attracts me to live electronic music. You have to be there, 100%. I suppose any performance is like that, but it's pretty intense in electronic. And so that's what's going to happen. I'll report back to you and let you know if it worked out. But I am doing, I do my quad thing, and he doesn't do quad, but, so I can quadify him. Already he's excited about that, So anyway, we'll see what happens.
Hi, so thank you for coming to UCSB. I have a question, not necessarily on behalf of myself, but somebody in the room. What advice would you give to an aspiring musician or an aspiring composer?
I would say, figure out what it is you have to say. You have to have something to say. It's not, being able to do that or being able to do this or I can do that, sounds like this. Ultimately, as an artist, there are many ways to compose. You don't always have to be a deep artist to make music. You can just, there are wonderful places to write music, just to films and whatever else. But I think the more you bring yourself to anything you're doing, that's the power that you have, is your inner power. So in some way, I think, I was talking to Joanne today.
Yeah, Joanne Kuchera-Morin in the Alisphere today.
In the Alisphere. And she has this mystical notion about how through physics and string theory and everything that we're all maybe one, maybe we are one. And maybe we are one. But in this moment of time, we've been given individuality. We live in bodies that are individual. We're separated. And I think maybe that our mission is actually to be in that individual, express that individual. I know this goes against Chinese thought and maybe other thoughts, where you can also, all think alike. And but I do think there's some calling to be who you are. And figuring out who you are, the tip-off, I think, is passion. It's a natural reaction when you feel some kind of force in or a calling in what you're doing, whatever it is. Playing rugby, it doesn't matter what it is, but you find your calling somehow. I forgot the question. Yeah.
You answered it.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
we really
you.
so
Thank you.
great to meet you.